I'm Jackie. Welcome to Django District. I run Django District with Chris Adams, who's wasn't able to make it tonight, but he wishes he could have been here. Tonight our speaker is Eric. I'll let him do his own introduction, but first we're going to go around the room, say your name, where you work, and if you have any job openings, and what it's for, because that's what we do. I'm Jackie, and I'm currently working as a Presidential Innovation Fellow with the White House and FEMA. I don't have any openings. There was talk about possibly a Python position, and I'll certainly, guys, I'll let you know if that happens, but right now there isn't any.
I'm Derek. I'm a contractor at the Library of Congress. I'm a systems administrator, and I don't think they have any openings.
I'm Ben. I'm a contractor at the DoD VA Interagency Program Office, and we do not really have any development openings.
Hi, my name is Amit. I'm working on my startup which uses Django and Angular. So that's really excited to come to this meetup.
Yes, I am too, because you can fill in many holes, I'm sure, in my presentation. So yeah.
And I am looking for a lot of people, at least one, to join my startup who are definitely strong in Python, and if they know about Django, definitely strong in Python and Django, and if they know about Angular, that's a plus. And I'm new to this area. This is my first meeting.
Oh, awesome.
So just love to get to know more of you.
Where'd you come from?
Boston.
Awesome.
I'm Mike. I work for a startup called KitCheck. Basically we put RFID tags on drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, and we use those in the hospital, so the hospital can keep track of that. It takes a process, they had this process which took them half an hour to an hour, and we cut that down to 1 minute. So we recently got funded and we're hiring, so definitely very interested to talk to anybody who's looking for work. It's awesome. I've only been there like 2 weeks, but I'm really excited to go to work, so if you got any questions, come talk to me.
This is Ramesh. I mostly work in SQL, but a friend of mine and myself are trying to quit our job for the last 3 months of this year and work on our startup idea we've been talking about a lot. And it revolves around online shopping carts and web services. That brings me to the talk of Django versus other micro frameworks. If you're just not using any templating at all, how does that work? And so I've been just experimenting with Pyramid, Flask, and a little bit of Django. Every time I go into Django, I'm not very convinced to come out of it. So.
I'm Marshall. I work for Ernst & Marsteller, and we have no openings right now. It's a PR firm.
I'm Miriam. I work for a startup, Industry Dive, and we run our system on Django. And I don't think we have any openings. Very small.
I'm Mote. I'm a freelance developer, so openings don't really work because I work by myself.
I'm Bob. I work at Politico, interested in the elections technology juncture here. We do have openings. We have openings for journalists, and our website does list a few development openings that I'd be happy to talk to people about. I don't know what the current status is of them, but I know they're especially looking for people who, or we're looking for people who work with PHP because there's some migration to using that more. But they're looking for stuff like JQuery, MySQL, and stuff like that. I'd be happy to explain more to anybody who's curious.
Okay. Hi folks, I'm Dave. I'm going to try and keep this short. There's 3 things. I teach interaction design at the Corcoran, no openings. It's like one class unless you want to be a free TA. I'm a basically freelance designer, developer, and I don't have any projects in mind, but we're always putting together teams for bigger projects, and I really, really could have used good Django people about 6 months ago. That project is still going. And then the third thing is, so if you're interested, I need DC folks. And then the third thing is non-paid. I help run a volunteer-run organization that runs classes, free experimental classes on everything from block picking to worm composting and intro Python. That's interesting enough. Knowledge Commons DC. We happen to have the entire system running as a Django app. So we run a school with about 2,000 students a year, about 200, 300 classes a year on this Django system, which is well beyond my means, my level of what I can safely develop, and would love people who want to play with these things.
My name's Bob. I'm here at the Sunlight Foundation. I'm a developer in Sunlight Labs. And I'm the current maintainer of InfluenceExplorer.com, which is one of the main sites at Sunlight. We are hiring. We recently lost the project lead on Influence Explorer to the Presidential Innovation Fellowship. And so hope you're happy with yourselves.
That's great, because I'll be looking for a job 6 months from now.
So this is a data-heavy site. It has a web app. Its main focus is the API, which supports lots of independent apps that are developed for bringing more attention to transparency and accountability in the government. So, Django, Postgres, and some front end, but Django and Postgres are the most, and project management.
Hi, my name is Gene. I work for a company called GeoCGI, and I'm a cartographer. I'm just curious about Django.
Jeremy Carwall. I work here at Sunlight too, web developer and iOS developer too. Right now I'm working on our Congress for iOS app, which we just launched for iPhone. We've had one for Android for 4 years now. We have our iPhone version. So that's been taking up most of my time. So no Django work lately, but soon.
Tina. Hi, my name is Tino Dai. I work for the Library of Congress. I work on the beta.congress.gov site. It's the replacement to Thomas, and the back end is a mix of SQL Alchemy and the Django RM. We're not using we're not using many of the web features, unfortunately. So that's what I do.
So before,
and you're coming back to the library after.
So before I get to Eric, a couple announcements. Coming up in the community, in the local community, we have August 3rd. I don't really know the date. Do you guys know the date? You know the date. Is it 9th? That sounds more familiar. Yes, I think it's August 9th, or that weekend. So there are two events. One, maybe not for you guys, maybe for you guys. One of them is Intro to Django class hosted by NovaPython. I know there's probably, I don't know if it's posted yet, but it will be posted. It is? Okay. And then the second thing is PyLadies is running an Intro to Python class that same weekend. Also, lastly, PyCon submission tutorials. I think the deadline's in September, so just putting that on your radar. PyCon is going to be in Montreal this year, so super fun if you can get a talk accepted. It's usually easier to convince your work to send you, because nobody wants to say no when you've had a talk accepted. It's easier for them to say no when you just want to go. So that's the argument I use. So I always try to get talks accepted. So I go to PyCon. Anyways, this is Eric. I'll let him introduce himself and his talk today.
Thank you, Jackie. And speaking of DjangoCon, there's some really good stuff coming this year, so I encourage you to go. In fact, this talk was basically, I submitted this with the intent of working on it and trying it out in Django District to work out the rough edges, which I'm sure there are many. In any case, so I am Eric Polakovich-Carr. I'm a senior software engineer at the Schroeder Institute, which you probably have no idea who that is, but American Legacy Foundation is, we sit inside of their research area, and American Legacy Foundation runs the Truth Anti-Smoking Ads. So basically I spend all day figuring out novel ways to help people quit smoking. Another thing I like to do is little side projects, and this one came about because my wife is running for our city council in Rockville. So I know that the talk is titled "Winning an Election." Really, should be "How I'm Going to Win This Election." In any case, so my wife, we moved here to DC 5 years ago. She worked with Maria Cantwell's office as a fellow. She's been doing so many things in Rockville, being on commissions and all that stuff. She finally dipped her toes in and is diving into the political life and trying to run for office. So I said, great. How can I write some code to help you out? And so basically, she decided that because she's a relative unknown, she's not an incumbent, she needed to have an aggressive canvassing operation. And she needed, technology to really help facilitate that. So instead of walking around with the pad and paper and going home and then writing down to a spreadsheet, 107 Charles Street has weak support and they want a yard sign, but they like environmental issues and blah, blah, blah. You just have a nice mobile interface as you're walking up to the door, walking away from the door, you can just tap stuff in and go to the next door. So that was the plan. And so we looked around for someone that already did this. And we found a bunch of people that kind of did a little bit of what we wanted and some of the things we didn't want. And the big thing that was missing was a nice mobile interface for doing this door knocking. So plenty of people that had products that manage tracking voters and fundraising in particular, things that matter. So there's one in particular I really liked, and and we decided we would just use some paper pads. I was like, you know what, maybe I can just throw a simple JQuery mobile front end on top, and then just make some communication channel through an iframe to talk to the stuff and scrape HTML off the pages, and then to pull data, and then I can post data back, and of course this didn't work, and of course it wouldn't work. I mean, maybe in 1999, but in any case, we'll get to that. But I had this idea. I had an idea for a side project, to work on for fun. Like, great, let's do this. So I use jQuery mobile because from what I've read, it's pretty easy to use. And you can do good things with it. So here's some examples of some jQuery mobile apps. We have Boston Logan, Kmart, Safeway. And all this stuff is pretty easy to define, which you'll see in a second. From the UI, you can customize it all you want. For example, Safeway over here probably did a lot of customizations, but Logan here, they probably stuck pretty close to the default scheme of what jQuery mobile looks like. And it's really easy as a non-designer like myself. I can't draw stick figures. I was able to put something up that was usable and also looked nice as well, which was a plus. And I was able to do it very quickly. So it also works very well on many devices, not just form factors like tablet or phone or even your computer, but also old devices, even feature phones. It'll gracefully degrade, and it'll still work. I mean, it won't look pretty at all, but it'll still be functional, even down to like an old Windows phone, not Windows 8 phone or whatever, but so.
It looks fine for desktop too.
Yes, exactly, it does. And in fact, oftentimes I look at the data. In fact, we'll be using my laptop to look at VoterPad through a desktop essentially, so I can put it up on the screen here. And of course, it's really nice too that in terms of testing things out and working with things, you have once again you have access to your computer. You don't have to test it on a phone. You don't have to do all these weird test frameworks to test out the different things. You can just work on what you're used to, which is HTML, CSS, whatever your back-end server, what have you. So anyway, so this is really what a jQuery page looks like, not including the content. So essentially, all you do is you're importing, the jQuery mobile CSS, the jQuery mobile JavaScript, the jQuery itself, and then you define these different sections. So basically, what's interesting about jQuery is everything revolves around these pages. So you define a div as a data role page, okay? And a page is any screen inside of an app. So this is a page. And then you define a header, a footer if you want, and the content area, okay? And it's all very simple HTML. So for example, we have the page, we have a header here, which has stuff inside of it, content, which has stuff inside of it, footer, which has content inside of it. So, for example, if we want to have a header that says map, has a little button here that opens up a side panel that comes out and has different settings and things like that. We just have, I'm going to knock this thing down just now. We have a H1, pretty simple. It gives you a nice title there. Just a regular anchor tag here. Puts this thing in the corner there. And you just basically say where you want to point it to, give it an icon, text, you're going to want it on the right side. So, and the same with the footer. Footer is just 3 anchor tags, up, down, add. So, so basically back to the story, I told my wife, I didn't get something up to you really, really quickly. And there was a long weekend, a holiday weekend, I took an extra day off. I said, I'm going to try to build something, okay? So over this weekend, I learned jQuery mobile, and I was able to prototype essentially what the user interface would look like. Granted, it had dummy data, but it was all just static HTML, and it was totally good for proof of concept, and to work out different user experience issues and things of that nature. So before I keep going, so in terms of the content, here we have just a list view, right? And so all we have is we have an unordered list called a list view. Then each list item we just have an anchor tag inside of it. That's it. And you get this really nice scrollable. Works on iPhone, works on Android, works on what was Palm's OS? Was it actually Palm OS? Was it
Palm OS.
Oh, Web OS. Thank you. I knew that wasn't right. Yeah. I mean, all these devices. The jQuery team tests on many devices. And, this will look great and it'll work right. And this is, by the way, this is the default theme, for example. And what's cool too is that jQuery Mobile supports a theme roller, so it's easy to customize your own theme using drag and drop and picking pretty colors, which is all I can do because I can't. I have no design chops whatsoever. Anyway, so if you look at this HTML too, from a Django standpoint, or really from any backend standpoint, it's really easy to see how simple it would be to wrap this up in a template. For UL, you have a for each up here, for each voter, or for each household. Then you have a LI, and here, instead of 504 Baltimore Road, you have, bracket, household dot address. And then, so now to get this list view, you have something that's about this big. So it's really nice. I wasn't expecting to enjoy working with jQuery Mobile so much and get so much done so quickly. So let's actually look at something working, since I like to have demos when I do these things. So let's see here. So let's look here. So I'm going to explain one other thing about one of the interesting things about jQuery Mobile. Okay, so here we have. I should probably move that over to the actual screen, shouldn't I? Instead of me looking at it. Let's see here. Okay. So let's see if I can do this like this. Actually, no. Okay. Anyway, so simple app. I have it switched over here so that it shows up. But you can have this. However you want to automatically adjust. If I squish the thing down like this, it would squish. So once again, this works on desktop, tablets, or whatever because it's nice and responsive and what have you. Anyway, so the way jQuery Mobile works in terms of navigating around, though. So when I click on a page, it uses an AJAX call and calls out. So instead of clicking a link and then your browser goes to that link, does a request to the URL, brings the HTML down, and it renders the whole thing. jQuery Mobile grabs that link, intercepts it, does an AJAX call out to the thing, pulls down the markup, and looks for a page, whatever page elements are inside of that markup that was pulled down from the AJAX call, and then injects it into the current page. So I'll show you an example. So I'm going to click on 107 Charles Street. And you notice, right here, this was added. Okay, this was added, and then the UI page active class was added. Okay, and also you saw it gave a nice transition and what have you, which is really, really nice. Okay, and to define a transition, it was just data transition equals slide. Pretty stupidly simple. So if I go back, See, div is pulled out, sucked back out, and we're back here. And now this is the UI page active. So this is one thing that when you first grab it, get jQuery mobile, it's like, oh, just find this HTML and have a mobile page, right? And you don't realize that it uses this mechanism in the background. This was the first time, one of the first places, oh, who am I kidding? Well, one of the places, maybe not one of the first. I fell on my face while working on this project. Because the Ajax stuff can be a little tricky, particularly when it comes to, say, you want to post a form to your server, and then have the server redirect back to whatever. You know, it's gonna intercept that post and try to do an Ajax call, and it's just really weird. And so you have to essentially break it to an Ajax call or do some other weird stuff where it gets a little more complicated. But in any case, but we're gonna keep looking at the happy case here.
Could you just walk me through it again? So when you press a link,
yep,
it fetches a full page to the Ajax, a full complete HTML page, or just parts of that page?
Just parts of that page. So, for example,
which is maintained controlled at the server side.
Can we actually see the request post?
I'm sorry?
See the request and post with the data?
You want? Okay, yeah, sure. Whoops.
So it fetches parts of the page and it's just.
Well, no, it fetches the whole page, but it only renders
pulls out
the tag. You know, it gets a full HTTP request back.
Okay.
But then it's taking.
It grabs
looks
the
for
data
page tags.
and only injects that part in.
Right.
I see.
Yeah. So. Let me.
It's like not changing the DOM until.
Yeah, let me refresh this page. Okay. So. Let's hit R instead of T. That's better. Okay. So we loaded, our typical standard context, and I'm going to bring over the source code real quick here so you can take a look at what the actual HTML looks like. If I had it open. In any case, so you can see right there, we have our typical. We just have our static content that's defined up in the head of the HTML. So when I click on that link, it is going to get this up here. I know I'm not using Vim. I'm terrible. Let's see. Okay. So let me make space there.
What editor? Sorry.
PyCharm.
Okay.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, so let me see. Here's my static stuff. Okay, so here's the page I just, that's loading. Simple page. You got your find the page here, header, content list view, what have you. Okay. So then the voter contact looks like this. Once again, we have a page, header, content, and
it is
defining
a full
some fields.
HTML page.
I'm sorry. Yes.
It is a full HTML.
Yes. So we're gonna go. We're gonna click this. Okay. So we got again. Okay. So what's inside of here? So we have the full HTML page. Okay. But what it does is it just pulls this guy out.
And replaces it in the
and replaces it and injects it into the HTML. So if we go back to the elements, here it is. And then once again, if I go back, it goes away. So one thing that's interesting too is that so if you look at the source code, so here, so we have this page defined. So you can have multiple pages defined on a single page actually too. So we have this little page down here as well called hello page. Okay, and so if I go back to the web app, I click on that. That already exists here, but it just basically sets it to UI page active and then deactivates that. Go back, and it's still there, but it's UI inactive. So that's like the general gist of jQuery mobile. So once again, so it gives you a nice looking interface on many devices, and it's pretty easy to, the markup is pretty simple. I mean, this is like the markup for the list page, go to contact page, I have this markup. So, it's just form fields, like select with options, just a regular input here, checkbox input, checkbox input, checkbox input. And then I should probably show you what the actual page looks like. So if there's an answer on the door, okay, so Samsonite Samsonson, which is a test name I always use in my code. I knocked on the door to talk to him about Julie. This is a slate, by the way, that she's running on. A slate of five candidates, four council seats, and then one mayor, trying to usurp the throne, so to speak. Anyway, so Julie, she strong supporter, wants a yard sign, and Julie should probably follow up with them. And yeah, so he is, save, which doesn't do anything. But in any case, and yeah, so that's not a bad form right there. It's not bad for a mobile app. I threw that together in a weekend. That's something that's like, okay, so I understand how this is going to work. I'm going to go door to door and collect data. It's going to be great for collecting data. Okay, so the one problem, and it's a big problem, with jQuery mobile versus going native, is it's slow. And you may not have noticed quite well, but so I'm on this laptop. So it's a little fast, but when you try this out on like a Droid, original Droid, or some of the older phones, and like many candidates, a lot of people on the slate, for example, have older devices, you feel this click. So I click on this. You felt that? It was like about a second and a half. Click, wait, go. You do this. This page is simple. It's just a P tag. It goes right away. So why is it taking so long? Well, because if you remember the code, let me just actually put it up. So this is a complicated page when you really think about it. So it has, these elements aren't so bad, but we have this expandable list. Inside expandable list is another expandable list, and inside that list is a bunch of forms. And you multiply all these forms by each candidate on the slate, and you multiply all of those by each person who lives in a house. So if you have a house full with a family of 5 people, that page opens really slow. So a second and a half turns into 3 seconds. Or really bad on say, like an iPhone 3, So the way you get around that is instead of loading all of this, you load in a simple version. In fact, let me just bring up the code here. Give me 1 second. Okay, and let's see here.
While you do that, I have a quick question.
Sure.
I believe on some of your IDs, you had your wife's name.
Did I?
Or CSS, you had your wife's name Julie at the end of it.
Did I?
So are there plans to unjuliefy this application?
Well, technically, this is demo code that I wrote up separate of the app. The actual app code is different. I mean, it's similar, but it's different. In any case, so now we went from, before we had like a bunch of stuff defined inside of here. Now the first thing that opens is just the small menu, and it's easier to know when you actually see it running. So if I go back and, well, technically I can refresh here, but refresh, and I have to run the web server. Okay. Well, actually, I guess I need to look at to really get the feel for how fast it is now. Okay, so when I click on it now, these are empty. So what you want to do in these situations, when you click on that, make a call out to the server, and then pull down the other data. And then you can put up a spinner, and it still takes the same amount of time, but now you can at least put some nice, pretty, they can look at this right away. You can maybe even lazy load it. You can maybe even, when this first loads, let it load, then start bringing it down before they even touch the thing. And, there's things you can do. But this is where, like, going from doing a prototype, can't recommend it enough. Great. Going to full-blown app for your company, I'm still not sure how I feel about it yet. This is like still really simple stuff. I haven't gotten into the nitty-gritty stuff that may not be a slam dunk, but it's certainly worth looking into. Anyway,
Quick question on that. See, it's slow because of the rendering and not the network?
Exactly. So when it hits, so basically pulls down the data, it's fine. Okay, maybe it's even cache, doesn't even hit the pull down anything, right? But then the process of pulling out the data, parsing it, and transforming it so it's in the jQuery mobile kind of format, and then injecting it into the thing, that can be slow. And once again, you probably do something wrong in some ways if it's super slow. In other words, you probably have way too much on one page anyway. So for example, really probably better if when I click on Samsonite here, that it goes to another page, for example, and shows the form for him. That's one way. That's another way of going around.
Does it do anything to, like, you know, if say you don't have something that's indicating that it's fetching or that thing doesn't load or whatever?
Sure.
Does jQuery mobile handle people tap 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 tap?
Nope. Nope. In fact, so one of the first
request.
Yeah, one of the first problems I had was when it first went out there and I gave it to people and they were using it. Like, great, okay, cool. Slate's using it, and people look at the database and it'd be like, man, this person was contacted like 20 times. It's like, oh, yeah, tap. So, anyway, there's some rough edges, but I mean, not so much. It's not a slam dunk. It's not necessarily a slam dunk. You still have to be, like with anything, you have to be cautious. That's the reason why we still have jobs. It's not super easy, but it gets you a lot of the way there. Okay, so moving on. Where did I leave off? Okay, so I guess we started talking about this actually. So what sucks about JQuery? Yeah, once again, the rendering widgets can be slow. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. And once again, it's one thing to be on a MacBook Air, it's another thing to be on an iPhone 3 or something older, original Droid. You'll really feel it then. And I got lots of complaints about this is slow and not responsive, and it's because it was too busy rendering. Anyway, it kind of has a subtle learning curve, because like I said, you reach some of these things to do something a little more complicated than just showing just a simple list. And then you run into some of the things you have to do. In particular, dynamically updating the DOM is a little tricky. You have to, cause you have to pull it in, you have to put it there, and you have to call some JQM JavaScript to signal it that it has to render it properly and what have you, but that's for another talk. And some of the really old devices have poor user experience. Of course, like feature phones where it degrades gracefully is one thing, but there are some devices that kind of sit, like let's say original Droid, Android 2.2 even. So some of the transitions are a little not good. They're a little choppy, a little slow, so on and so forth. So anyway, let's see, where am I? So back to my stupid plan. Made this, had this UI. I was like, oh, this looks great. Try to make my communication layer, and of course, like anybody who knows anything about security, I'm denied. X-frame options. I can't read anything that's inside this hidden iframe. So I can't scrape anything out. I can't push anything up. So I'm like, great, that sucks. So now what am I going to do? And as a Django developer, of course, what am I going to do? I'm going to throw Django. I'm going to build my own thing. This is supposed to be a fun project. Now it's gotten even funner. Okay. So now I get to build a back end for it too. So we're just like Julie. I love you. I think we should just get rid of this third-party thing. I don't think it's going to work out. I think I should just write something. Don't worry. I got time. I can get it done in time. Okay. It'll be quick. Promise. Which was not true, by the way. But in any case, it's true enough. So.
You just scope creep yourself.
Oh, I totally scope creep myself. Yes. So, and once again, we're looking at the code. You can easily see how that could be put into tied into a Django backend.
Yeah.
You can easily see how the HTML could be turned into a Django template. Django's wonderful. Like, modeling of data, you can model data. It's easy. Like a voter contact, I just throw all that stuff in there. A user who was knocking, who is the person actually logged in, who the voter is that's being talked to, who we talk in reference to which candidate, what their support level is, they want a yard sign, host events. All this stuff is super easy to throw into a Django model. Super easy. I love it. So, and then another thing too, which is great, it can do things like, for this, when people save a contact, if they have the follow-up there, I can send an email to the client saying, hey, this person needs a follow-up. So if I knock on somebody's door, so we can reach as many people as possible, and they say, oh, I'd really love to talk to Julie sometime, say, great, I'll mark it down to follow up. So now instead of waiting to come back and look at the data and say, oh, you need to follow up this person, it automatically reaches out to Julie and says, hey, this person lives on this street, we talked about blah, we talked about environmental issues, and they really want to talk to you about it. You should go over there. It's like, I'll go after dinner. It works great. And, that's kind of great things you can do with a Django. And then in terms of views, make a simple form. I don't have to redefine what fields are inside of this form, and just say, based off this model, based off that model. And you know, this is a typical view in terms of posting Django, posting form data up to a Django view. You know, basically, if it's a post, check if, you know, put the post data into a form, or forms in this case. Make sure they're all valid. If they're valid, save each form, and then until respond and everything was okay. Because once again, we're using jQuery mobile, so have to make an AJAX call instead of a post. But I mean, instead of regular redirect response. But anyway, you know, and otherwise, you know, make a form, give it some initial data, and send it out. And yeah. So once again, looking at this is just to remind you what the form looks like. You know, this is what the template code looks like. Really simple. You know, I'm just extending from a base HTML, you know, from a base template. But, you know, I have the header here, household.full address. You know, for the form, you know, jQuery mobile works with simple forms. I don't have to do some special stuff. I have to give a special class or something like that for it to recognize it. Just say, here's an input, or it says select. Make it look pretty. And you know, Django automatically, if you have this form and you say, okay, render this, or render it as these things, and it'll automatically look pretty, magically look pretty. So, I mean, this is pretty simple. This is pretty easy to look at, pretty easy to understand, at least in my opinion. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But so once again, working in jQuery mobile, it's been really simple, really easy to work with. You know, just with that simple stuff, I got this beautiful mobile app. I mean, I have a beautiful mobile app. You know, and it's like, you think about, like, once again, you know, if you're trying to do something really serious, you're going to end up probably want to go native anyway. But, you know, when you're trying to do some simple stuff, I mean, that's pretty low barrier to entry to making mobile apps. You couple that with PhoneGap. PhoneGap is basically a means of serving a web page and a mobile phone. Like, you can actually put it on, you know, Apple Store or what have you. You know, all of a sudden, a Django developer, can be a mobile app developer. And that's pretty powerful. At least, I think so. We're going to find out. I'm going to find out in the future, certainly. So, let's see here. So one thing that's really cool, too, I should mention. Django 1.6. So these contact forms, let's say there's a phone number field where you can enter a phone number. HTML5 supports new inputs, like phone, email, whatever. And Django doesn't use those right now. 1.6 Django will know, oh, this phone field, you know, it should define a model. It'll come out as a phone input. And the jQuery mobile automatically, when it push that thing, it'll bring up a phone entering interface instead of a regular interface, which is, you know, a little nice aside. So.
Have you tried using 1.6 yet?
I have not. Have you?
No, still in beta, right?
Yeah. Is it now for beta? Did it get for beta yet?
Probably.
Yeah. I know what is being released, like August.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of talks on 1.6 at DjangoCon, at least submitted anyway. I'm a reviewer on the board. So anyway, let's see here. So let's take a look at VoterPad as it stands right now. So let's see here. Should already be on. Okay, great. So, you know, one thing is, so right now it's there isn't a GPS on my computer, so it's not targeting in on us. But if you're on a phone, once it got a lock on you, it would lock in on where you were.
That is us.
Yeah, it is us.
Damn it, that is us, isn't it?
A lot of times Wi-Fi is better than GPS.
No, I gotta scroll. No, I didn't want this to happen.
We're getting the Grand Connecticut.
Of course.
You can zoom out.
Yeah, I see. So basically, I checked to. I mean, of course, it still tries to do, you know, call, and it basically says if it's a certain accuracy, it has to be X accurate for me to actually center on you. And apparently, we were accurate enough to. Okay. Well, that's what it's supposed to. And of course, I set the zoom so that doesn't go too far out because I don't want to load in, you know, 10,000 records, 10,000 markers on the map. So anyway, so I'm going to scroll up to Rockville here.
If you want to keep talking, I can scroll for you or something.
That would be fantastic, actually. Just only.
Do you know how to get to Rockville?
I know, just I scroll. So anyway, so
You need to know the direction.
That was a
So basically, okay, we're getting there. Okay, so basically, as a person who's using VoterPad, they have it on this map view, and they go walking through the streets of Rockville. And as they walk through the streets of Rockville, give me a second now, they're going to have markers show up. There you go. Okay, hold on. Stop right there. You can. Okay. Okay. So, for example, basically, you know, Julie comes home from work, and she goes knocking. And I'm not making a story. This is what she does. She's been doing this for months now. You know, she needs to knock on 3,600 doors. So, you know, she's been knocking since May, I think. She's knocked on 2,000 so far. So, I mean, she's been hitting the pavement. But in any case, so basically, you know, you start here, drives a car, parks right there. It's like, okay, I'm going to walk down this street and come around here and walk, and then come back around and then leave. That'll be my knocking for the day. So you grab the app, turn on the app.
Just curious, how do you get all the addresses of all?
Okay,
Do you have a?
good question. So basically, I was lucky that the person that's running, the person running for mayor, had records of all the voters. But otherwise, though, you'd have to go talk to your election office or whatever for whatever election you're running in, then ask for voter records. Sometimes it's free, sometimes it's $10,000. You know, it depends. So in any case, so for me, I had a nice set of data, and that's always nice. So in any case, so you walk, you knock on a door, knock on this door. It's a bunch of apartments, apartment building.
That looks like a building too.
Yeah. Oh, whatever. Anyway, so you click on the apartment. You know, these are real people.
And the name comes with the data.
Mm-hmm.
These names come with the.
Yes. So there's this is Django view in the back. You know, there's a model called Voter. The Voter model has, you know, their name, their sex, their party, which I don't list here, which I should, which I did before. No one's complained about that. Anyway, their age, stuff like that. And then there's, you know, another model with the years they voted, and so on and so forth. So what's nice though, so if you see that these two people never voted, and there's lots and lots of voters in Rockville, and you're not going to hit all of them. So what we do is we instead we use walk sheets. So let me go up to where my neighborhood is and see where I live. Let's see here. First Mill.
Now, every time you move onto a new tile, there, every time you're scrolling around, is it sending it requests?
Oh
to
yeah, I should probably
populate all
mention
the
that.
houses?
Facts here. So basically, you know, so I just scrolled a bunch of times. So it's pulling, you know, a ton of stuff from the server right now, and trying to render on the map, which is why it's stuck here. In fact, let me just refresh.
Do you add a delay for the scrolling?
That's what I was going to say.
I do.
Okay.
So
it looks
basically,
like it's pausing count. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, did it refresh? Did it go?
It is refreshing.
Oh yeah. Okay, there it goes. Okay.
Oh man.
Oh, did I seriously? Okay. Anyway, so as you move around, we won't go around again. So as we move around, it waits until the map is idle for a second, then it waits a second, and then it reloads. Then it does a call. It knows what these bounds are and uses GeoDjango in the background. So GeoDjango is a GIS package for Django, and so basically I can say, okay, so we got, you know, latitude, longitude here, latitude, longitude here. Give me all of the households that fall inside that range. So, and it just like, okay, here you go, and it gives it right away. And that's a very simple thing you can use GeoDjango for. GeoDjango can do so much. I've given a talk on GeoDjango here before, but in any case, so I'm using it for simply just pulling in the proper households. And then you know, it keeps track of where it's loaded. So if you like drag a little bit here, it's like, oh, you kind of loaded in this general area, so I'm not going to load again. Anyway, so I was going to say, you basically pick a house walk sheet here, and then that You gonna stay here? Are you? Don't pull it away. Okay, so, well, that worked out well. Okay, so let me zoom out a little bit. So we went from having a lot of households where people don't vote to these are households in the East Rockville neighborhood where the people have voted in 2 of the last 3 elections. So now suddenly it looks much more attainable to knock on all the doors in the neighborhood. 2 houses here, go down this street, house there, house there. You're not knocking on every single house on the street. You want to get the easiest votes as possible. And as it turns out, you only need about 3,000 votes will win you the council seat, as if history serves correctly. Anyway, but so she just needs to knock on. She can pick. She can knock on. She can just go to people that have voted in the last 2 of the last 3 elections, and that's like 3,600. So so there's a nice buffer there for she can get to them and talk to them. And most people no one's even visited their houses in general. So this way, she has a nice strategy. She can look at her map. She can strategize on where she's going to go next. I wanted to add in features that like pick the optimal routes to walk. A traveling salesman and all that stuff. But anyway, let's talk about scope creep, right? Anyway.
Right here.
Anyway, what was I saying? So anyway, so that's where it stands right now. Let me probably just move on. Okay, so let's see here. Are you gonna load up Keynote? Where are you? Oh, there we go. Okay. So I have this app working. They're entering data. They're happy, but I'm not happy. I need more stuff to do. This has been fun. So plan C, AngularJS. So for no reason whatsoever, other than I talked myself into my JavaScript was looking a little crufty, and I was like, I needed to handle it a better way, and I need something to do in the evenings. So I decided to integrate an AngularJS with jQuery Mobile and Django. So Angular is not really a new way, but a new way to handle dynamic client-side code. First released in 2009, maintained by Google. It's a model view model, but really it's model view whatever, what people like to call these things nowadays, there's so freaking many of them. And all the cool kids are doing it, and I want to be a cool kid. So I decided to use AngularJS. So, wrong way. So, this part of the talk, see, when Jackie put an email out saying, I want to talk about front-end stuff related to Django a few months ago. I was like, yeah, sure. I'm kind of working on a mobile app. This is like, it was maybe a day or 2 into working on it. I was like, yeah, sure. I can do a talk. I know everything. I'm good, right? And so then a few weeks go by, and I finished the one part. I'm like, you know what? This may even have AngularJS in it. At this point, I hadn't even started using Angular. It's like, I think I might just throw it in just to make it that much more interesting, right? So today I can tell you that I do have it working somewhat, but only somewhat. So particularly the mapping part has been a little more tricky. Well, it's not even so much tricky. Anyway, so this part of the talk may be a little crappy, so if anyone wants to chime in and put me in my place, I would be incredibly appreciative, to be honest. Anyway, so AngularJS in a nutshell, we're going to be using declarative programming in a way. So what does that mean? So typically when you write an app, you are a front-end, client-side JavaScript stuff. You're going to use jQuery, a lot of, $ selector on click, do all this JavaScript stuff, right? Manipulate the DOM, pull stuff out, look at the value on this input with another selector, so on and so forth. It's funny because I remember it used to be amazing when jQuery first came out, but now it's getting a little, it's getting a little long in the tooth. So with Angular, you're going to do a lot less of that. In fact, you're barely going to touch the DOM if you're doing it right. You may write some code that touches the DOM outside of your main code, but overall, though, like your workhorse code is going to not be messing with the DOM. So you're going to be writing JavaScript. You're not going to be touching the document object model. So basically, a controller, and I'll share what a controller is, manages the state for a given page. Okay. And you kind of think of a controller as a view in a way in Django, and And basically, a controller manages the state. There's a thing called the scope of a controller. And you can kind of think of that as a context, as your context that you pass into a template. And once again, I'll show you what I mean in a second here. But anyway, the HTML, in the HTML, you define how the page looks for a given state. So for example, this is shown when this is true, and it doesn't show when this is false. Not so much, a person clicked the button, write some JavaScript that hides that controller. Someone clicked that button, writes some JavaScript that then shows that controller. It just knows to hide or show because this is true or false. So it's based on the state. Anyway, and it does this by two-way binding, which we'll look at as well. So your models, however, so one thing I was really worried about when I used Angular, or any framework for that matter, Backbone, or Knockout, or Ember, or whatever, was having to define have to duplicate code that I wrote on the back end. I didn't want to have to write my models all over again. And with Angular, you don't really have to do that, which is really, really nice. So Django REST framework has been really great for me in terms of exposing the models on my backend server and providing them for Angular to pull down and use. We use a thing called, well, we being me, I'm using a library called Rectangular. It's a client-side package for using with Angular. And this is just, I like this better than what Angular's built-in stuff does for working with the REST API. And basically we're using a lot of promises. And promises are basically, I really should have wrote an example down here, but when you think about you doing an AJAX call, they have to then when it comes back, you have a inner function that then gets called. When it gets called back, then maybe you have to do another AJAX call inside that. And you get this thing where it kind of nests out like this. Promises kind of help alleviate some of that. But that was probably a terrible presentation. But in any case, we're going to take a look at an example Angular app here because VoterPad just wasn't quite up to snuff, in my opinion. So let's see here. Am I going to correct Angular example? Okay. So you're supposed to pull. There it goes. I was going to say. Yeah, this thing where there's no activity pauses so that it stops constantly polling the GPS inside the phone and draining the battery. But I just wanted to brag. Anyway.
That's great. And that's something you rolled your own?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Let's see. Where do I want to go to? 9,000. Okay, so now I have to run streaming. Oh, the wrong thing, of course. So, I have defined a couple things here. A couple API endpoints for demonstration purposes. I can't type. This must be painful to watch me do this. It's painful for me. Okay, so we have this. And we have killing me. So much, Eric. We have this. We have this. Okay. Very simple web page. No CSS styling whatsoever. I told you I can't even draw stick figures, so of course it looks like this. So, simple web page, a list of people, city they live in, Democrat or Republican, and then a button to delete them. So this page you can, you can sort by name, which is doing automatically, sort by city, whatever. Name again, you can filter by party, Democrat, what have you. You can add person, and automatically puts them in the proper place. So remember, this is sorted by name, so it's grabbing a random person and throwing them in there. You can of course delete people as well. So anyway, so this is a simple app. You think about how much jQuery would be involved for doing this, particularly like pulling somebody down and putting them into the DOM so that they're in the correct position on the page, in the correct order in here when you have it filtered by whatever. It's like you think about all the different stuff you have to write. It's kind of annoying. So this is pulling from this REST API. This is a random person API. It just creates a random person, the random name, and a set of 3 cities and whatever. And then this one is a random people. It just pulls a list of random people. So it's just JSON. Anyway, so what does the code look like? Okay, let's update. There you go. Okay, so this is, where should I start? Let's start up here. Okay, so this is essentially the Django app. I mean, the Django. That's good. Djangular? Someone needs to write a package called Djangular. Seriously, that's great. Anyway, Angular. This is pretty much the Angular code. Okay, so we define our app, and typically this is where you put your routes and things of that nature for an Angular app. And that's something I'm not going to touch on in terms of routing in Angular versus routing in Django, but it's something that's kind of weird when we're trying to integrate the two together. Anyway, so all we're doing here is basically setting up REST-Angular to say that we're the API that we're going to be hitting sits on /API. So anyway, so this is the controller I was talking about. And once again, you kind of think of this as a Django view, okay? And basically, so much in the view, it's like, okay, I want to show this list of people. You do a user rm, people.objects.all, equals people equals people.objects.all, for example. Here we're just doing rectangular.all from the random people API endpoint. Get list. And what this returns is a promise. And a promise is basically this object that represents an asynchronous call. So it's not the actual people. It's not the actual list of people, but it's just a representation of the call. So to get the people, you have to add a .then. So when this is done, and there's things in the library that let you chain multiple promises together, so you can say, people equals random people, random animals equals animals. So you can have something down here that says, get all the animals, all the people, and then do blah. But in any case, so what we're doing here is we're going to scope .people equals people, the list of people. If you look at here again, this is the list of people. Those are being pulled down, just JSON. We have objects here. So each object in this list has a property city, name, and party. So Bethesda, Donald, Avila, Democrat, what have you. So the code again. So now we have this list of. So that's our model. Our model came from the server. Okay, it was defined on the server. And down here, all we're saying is, okay, we want to have that list of people inside of this property here, this value, this variable. So now, all these models are down on my client. I didn't have to do anything to rejigger them or to set them up. So once again, treat scope like you would the context of a Django template. Okay. So then right here we have scope.order data by. So that's the way we want to order the data. We're going to order it by name when the page loads. And then what's interesting, we have a couple functions here that can be called from events. So we can add a person. That basically we're doing once again rectangular.one, get a random person, then add them to the people array. Just push them on there. Remove person. We're just going to, this is underscore here. Basically, make people equal to people without that person. So that's the code for doing all this in terms of JavaScript. So you're not seeing a bunch of DOM manipulation. You're not seeing a bunch of reading. You are seeing dollar signs, but in any case, so the HTML then looks like this. So we have the body here, and basically we're saying this, any markup that exists inside of this body is controlled by this controller here. And then we go, this select box which we can sort by name or city. We're going to bind that to the order data by field inside of that scope. So once again, so think of it like if this was a, well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so that's tied to that variable, okay? So when this option is changed from name to city, that variable gets updated inside the scope. Okay, and that's going to be important in just a second. So same thing here. Now we go to party filter, and we have like nothing or Democrat, Republican, Independent. Now party filter you're just seeing for the first time. It's like, oh, but that wasn't defined up here, and that's okay. So basically, when this is hit for the first time, the page loads. It's bound to party filter. Party filter is undefined. That's okay. That just means it's null. It means it's going to pick this. Okay, so no big deal. So then we also have this button here, and we just basically have this thing ng-click, add person. We're just going to call that function. So when you click, you're just going to call that function. So then we have, down here, we have our table, we have this thing called ng-repeat. So for each person in people, filter them out if they, let them stay in if they're, in the party filter. So if they're Democrat, they're in. If they're anything else, filter them out. And order them by whatever the order by data is set at. Okay, we just do people, name, city, party, and give a button here at the end that has an X on it that says remove person, person. And person, remember, was defined inside of this ng-repeat right here. So this actually should look kind of familiar. Does this kind of remind you of Django a little bit? Like you're gonna see this being a for each right here, and like for people and person and people, and then putting people in there. It even has a double brackets and everything. So it's actually from as a Django developer. Initially, Angular was very easy to kind of sink in. In fact, this little demo here I wrote on the Metro yesterday, just to lay it out. It was really super simple to write. So in any case, and that's it. And then I have I have my models here defined on the server, and it just works. Just clicking, it's adding these people wherever. I'm sorting again, city, Republican, whatever, removing them. Going back to here.
So question about the party filter.
Yeah.
From the code that was shown there, I didn't really see it being bound to a particular field on the model. So is it basically just looking for the presence of that value anywhere in the model, or? So
I hate that it's called ng model.
Okay.
And maybe that's because I'm coming from Django. Really, it should be called ng scope, well, maybe not ng scope. But basically, the whole thing is, it's just, scope is the model.
Okay.
Scope is always the model. That's a good way of thinking about it. So basically, it's looking for, anything you put in here, it's looking for, party filter inside of the scope, inside of this scope variable. Order data by, it's looking for that inside of this scope.
But so that was never initialized.
Scope?
Scope dot party filter.
Yes, it was never initialized, exactly. But when you set this value, it set it to whatever. Now, I should say too that this does get complicated. So for example, I've done something where it's nested, where essentially it's where I haven't initialized, say, party filter dot parties or something. I don't know. And then with the dot parties, that complains, because now you're trying to find something that's on an undefined, and that complains. So once again, once you get past, just like with jQuery mobile, once you get past the more simple stuff, that you start running into some little things that you have to do. Now I do. Then I would have to declare it up here with just some simple value or empty list or something like that.
Where does it compare party filter to person.party?
Right. Yeah. That's what. How does it know what to do there?
Okay. So right here, this is the part of the presentation where I pray for somebody to save me and explain exactly what you just asked. So yes, let's go. Please.
So basically, party filter is defined, but nowhere does it ever say that party filter should look at the party attribute on the person.
Right.
Is it magic where anything is like
I'm pretty
X
sure
filter will just look at X field?
So I really wish there was. I'm pretty sure you're exactly right. I really wish there was a name that was random that, like Democrat Jones.
Right. Yeah.
Because I bet Democrat Jones would not show up in the list.
Right.
And something tells me if I spent a little more time on this little demo instead of just a metro ride to Rockville, there's probably something we can do specify a field or something of that nature.
Oh, you think it's just concatenating all the strings?
Yeah, it's just like, okay, we look through all the fields available to me, and
unless it's like whatever filter, right? Like if you change that to city filter.
Yeah, that's a great. You would hope it would work that way, right? Please God, someone save me. Someone knows the answer. In any case, so that's Angular, and so what's great is that I can hook it up to. Still demo time? No, let me show okay. I can still hook it up to my API. So I'm going to show you that real quick here. Come on, Eric. What is it? Well, no. All right, it's not even on the. Sorry, it's on my local machine. Hold on. This will be good. I promise. Okay, so get one dev branch. Check out. Okay, let's try this. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I got this for very little. So Django REST framework, if you haven't used it yet, it's awesome. Love it. You should totally use it.
I've been using TastyPie.
Yeah, TastyPie is great too. And I had to choose between one or the other. And the reason why I didn't choose TastyPie is because I heard that the maintainer of the package was moving away from the project. Right when I was trying to make a decision about this. And so I hedged my bets and went Django REST framework. But TastyPie is an excellent framework for REST APIs. I can highly recommend that as well. I know at the post, you guys were, or Jeremy and them, Serdar and Jeremy, were super into TastyPie when I was heading out. So that was a good contract there. Anyway, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so of course you have this nice HTML representation, and you can enter in new things here, which is kind of nice, But the main thing though is that the JSON, so automatically get this stuff. So this is like what the model is. So once again, I define my model on the server, and have this nice API, and it pulls down the models for me. I don't have to define the models on the client side. I have them right here in the Django, the API framework. And as I update the models on the server, they'll be updated here. And I don't have to. And with using something like Django REST framework or TastyPie, it isn't like you're going in and manually updating these views that you've made to add in these fields. It does it for you. It's great. So let me see. So the big takeaway for what I'm rambling about here is that you have to make a decision between whether you want to use Django templates when you integrate with Angular, or if you want to only use Django as a backend with the API endpoints for actually getting data to and from the server. And I'm currently having trouble making that decision. So one thing, once again, when we looked at the Angular code, we saw there was like brackets. There's actually a lot of things that look similar, right? So if you want to integrate Angular code into a Django template, then it gets kind of weird because now you essentially have to use different brackets for the different things, and it just gets kind of weird. And there's a lot of other things too that become a little complicated, which I'm still working through, and I don't want to be on video saying things and making assumptions about that, and I'm not being true. So
I've been using partials, and they work pretty well.
Yes, I'm using partials as well. In fact, what I do is I have the initial page load. Yeah, that's a template. Yeah, and then I define things like a few routes and some enumerations and things like that. Some like general purpose global stuff, and then I use partials and stuff. The rest is static. So you've been doing the same thing?
Yeah.
Ah, good. Some reinforcement. Good. So, and that's another thing that's interesting about Angular particularly when it comes to integrating with anything, Django related or particularly jQuery mobile, it feels like we're still kind of in the Wild West. I haven't ran into a lot of people that have been really trying to use Angular or Django yet. I don't know if you have.
Yeah.
You're the first person, to be honest. And,
I have it running right here.
Yeah, nice. But I haven't really seen a lot of talks or a lot of blog posts or whatever, and still seems a lot of things still kind of up in the air. But in any case, so for me, and I'm sorry, what was your name?
Ahmed.
Ahmed. So we've been using partials and using the initial page load as a template, and then everything else is all static content. So in any case, for what I was using for my VoterPad Angular version so far is Django REST Framework, jQuery Mobile Angular Adapter. And I know this is supposed to be a jQuery Mobile Angular talk, and I didn't even talk at all about mixing the two together. But so this is actually the only way to do it right now without like writing your own stuff, and it can get hairy writing your own stuff. And this is going away, and the authors that are doing this are saying, okay, we learned a lot doing that, we're going to make a new package now and do it a different way. So when I talk about being the Wild West, it's a lot of things are still kind of shaking out until we get to some of the best practice and things of that nature. So in any case, Angular Google Maps, this is something that's hopefully going to be a godsend. So I'll be able to, the markers that show up on the map will hopefully be managed in the same way that, that list of names were. So instead of, calling JavaScript to add markers and take markers off, I just have my scope variable called markers, and I just update that, and it automatically makes the map look great. REST Angular and underscore JS, which, just a nice utility library. Okay, so just about done. So yeah, this can kind of suck too. Documentation, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it's awful, particularly coming from Django. There's a lot of it's good. Some of it's like really, really sparse and doesn't really say a lot. You learn more in the comments than the actual doc itself. For a lot of stuff I'm doing, I'm relying on immature third-party open source packages, which the open source part isn't the bad part, of course. I love open source, but a whole package saying, "Yep, that was cool. We're going to do something totally different now." That kind of sucks. SEO with any dynamic thing is, you have to be cognizant of that.
Do you need SEO for this project?
No, not at all. Right. But just, I need another bullet. And the learning curve is, well, it's like this. And I got this off a blog, and I totally understood. So, I was like, oh, that's great. It's like, what? How's this? And, it's like, oh, that's so cool. Wait, but how's that filter working? Like, where's that data coming from? Oh, okay, well, that's pretty sweet. I think I'm about here right now. So I got a long way to go to get up to there. It does seem really cool, but it's a lot that I still have to pick up and learn. So, anyway, that is my talk. And if you live in Rockville, or you know someone who lives in Rockville, or you're willing to do voter fraud and vote for Julia from a dead person, whatever.
You're out of transparency.
I'm on camera. I'm kidding.
You just don't want to draw attention.
Anyway, vote for Julia. She's amazing. Honestly, she's incredible. She's gonna be a great council member. So I suggest doubt anyone in Rockville's here, but maybe someone on camera will see it. I don't know. Anyway, so that's it. So any questions?
Are you worried about this being taken out of context, what you just said? Use your political career for political slander ads. Her husband encourages us.
Can you turn that camera? Sorry.
Non-technical people won't make it this far into the...
Very good point.
Good
call.
It only takes one.
Yes.
I have a beginner question on the API stuff.
Sure.
How does the authentication work if you have it as an
Glad you asked.
independent API?
You gave me a good excuse to bring up the code. I'm always for that. This is not the proper one. I want you over here. Okay. So by the way, this mess of API here, that it doesn't have to look that way. I just want a little more granular control of how some things went. Really, actually, this can be wrapped up into like 5 lines, if you want. But I took the painful way. Anyway, but everything else is not really that painful. So let me see here. So I've been taken to adding an API folder to my app for my packages or apps. But it's up to you what you want to do with it. But anyway, so you basically works this way. So you have a serializer. And remember how Django forms? Super easy. I just want to say use a model. Same way the Django REST framework. Create a serializer, class meta, model equals candidate. And basically that, and by the way, this read-only timestamp serializer is actually just, it's just a subclass of this. I just wanted to add these two things, so the timestamps are, you can't overwrite the timestamps. But anyway, but basically you just give it a model serializer, and now you have this thing that can turn your Django model data into JSON, send it down the pipe, and when something comes up the pipe that you want to save or work with, this will handle turning it from JSON back into a Python object, just like that. So, it's a good snap. Anyway, so then you have your views. So, like all the different API endpoints. It's also a really simple setup. So, candidate, query set, I want to get, so for the API, I want to give candidates that are only slate members, because they have the opposition in there as well. And I want to order them by their name when they come down the pipe. Just as a nicety. Give it the serializer class. Okay, so here's when authentication comes in. Okay, so, I'm about to say REST Angular. Django REST Framework. Thank you. Django REST Framework has a lot of permissions that comes with these objects. And you can have it, this permission works where basically you have to be signed, you have to have a session, the valid session or whatever, in your cookies or whatever, and then it'll work. You can also have it so you have to pass in a header with a token. You can have it set up so that, it uses your typical, drop down with the menu, username and password. And it's really, really easy actually to make your own customized authentication. I'm sure there's probably other authentication like OAuth and stuff like that in there. I wouldn't be surprised. So it's actually really simple to set up authentication with these. And it's granular too. So candidates require this authentication. You could have neighborhoods require this and this authentication. Tries this authentication, then it falls back on this authentication.
This authentication is sessions where you log into a Django page?
So basically I've logged into the admin already on on that computer, so it already had the session, so it's like, oh, I remember you. Here you go.
How would you compare that with the API key, for example?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I have the candidates log into a website, and so they already need to authenticate to get into the VoterPad app. So they're already authenticated. So it's like okay, but for example, if I was having a third party be able to hit the API, of course I'd want to be, have a token that I generate for them that they would have to pass in, secret token that only they would know, or what have you. It's kind of up to you how you want to do it. You have lots of options with the Django REST framework.
So in my case, in addition to Django, I have another set of Python code doing other things, which need to pull the data from this framework. A backend just like this. And can that backend Python code do a Django session login and then pull, or is API key the only option in that case?
Well, no, you'd probably want to set up multiple permission types then. Right. So you could have it set up so that once again we can have like this is a tuple. I mean, it's a so we can have multiple permissions. So you probably want to set up, people that are hitting the website and hitting a page that Angular wants to talk to the API.
Right.
They use this authentication. Right. But then for your other code that doesn't have that, you tack on a second token-based authentication right there or what have you. That when they do the call, checks to see if they have a cookie. No, whatever, they're not in possession. Okay, let me try this one then. Okay, oh, they have the token in the header. Okay, now you can have your data. So that's the way I would do it. So once again, we have our view set, and then we have this ungodly mess of the URL comps. But so basically, the reason why I did this is because I want to be able to have nested API endpoints. If you want to just have a candidates API endpoint, neighborhoods API endpoint, a voter API endpoint, that's easy. That's like I said, that's like 5 lines of code, and Django REST Framework will make all that for you and make it all nice and functional, including adding these things in there. For me though, I want to be able to say get all the get all the households inside of this neighborhood, for example. So I wanted an endpoint that could do that, because in REST Angular, let me bring up REST Angular again. This should be interesting. Let's see here. Here we go. Always doing that. Oh yeah. So here, so you have random people. So we could do city. Now I'm forgetting incentive. Essentially, you can do something like city, Rockville, all people. Like it lends itself to nesting, being able to have like nested things. So it's a way of filtering. This I'm pretty sure syntax is incorrect, but that's the general gist. So that's the reason why I have this all these many URLs set up here, which I've now put a something. So you were asking about authentication. I think I answered your question, right?
Yeah. I think so. Would you go from your Angular code and authenticate over there, or would you rather have this as a follow-up page?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what I would. Yeah. I guess it's up to you.
I have a separate Django page which has the input form for logging in, and then you click on get the app.
Yeah, I've cheated. Since this is used by a small number of people and I don't care about security that much, why am I on camera? This is Bizarro Eric, by the way, not the real Eric Block. I have it set up in the admin that I send an email to the candidate because these are, I want to make it as frictionless as possible to get into the app. So it sends an email to their app, to the phone, and says, okay, click this link to log in. It has a token. That token is then used for authentication one time, and then it sets the session cookie, and then it deletes itself. And it's only active for like a day or two or something like that. But yes, I do send totally valid credentials over the plain text and over the wire to their email accounts. And so basically they don't. So then they log in their phone. So the cookie's saved forever. Well, at least try to. And then so then whenever they log to the app after that, they already have that cookie set, so they're automatically getting to the app. So that's how I did it, which is a terrible way to do it, camera. Everybody wants a terrible way to do it.
Actually, there's the magazine app for iOS devices. It's run by Marco Arment, who's a big iOS and is a favorite developer. And he uses that same.
Oh, does he?
Method. And he actually had a pretty big debate on one of his podcasts about whether it's a good idea or not.
Yeah, because it feels like a bad idea, doesn't it? Am I wrong in thinking it feels like a bad idea?
Well, the interesting thing was that your login method is basically needing to have access to the mail account. Mm-hmm. And so his argument is that it removes you from the responsibility of storing credentials.
Right.
That's very true.
Yeah. So
that's very true.
To do a secure Gmail.
Not to mention it reduces the. I forgot my password. Can you reset my password?
If you have a password reset mechanism, they're not really gaining anything over password reset by email anyway, right? So it's the same. If somebody gets login reset password by getting it sent to an arbitrary email address.
I've noticed. There's been at least one site in recent memory that has sent me my password, like my reset password, or when I say I forgot it, they send me my password.
Sure.
That's just terrible.
Well, I know, but I wonder if they're following that same general idea of we send this securely through Gmail or through Google Apps or something, and
so the token expires after use. So do you have to send that email every time you want to use it?
No. Well, the idea is that they logged in the first time, they stored their session, the cookie when they logged in. Hopefully they will never delete that cookie. Oh. So they've always, essentially it's like, here's your key. Well, put it in your pocket and hold on to it, And as long as they don't throw the key away,
Doesn't Django put a timeout on these cookies or something? I think it does.
No, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly when I did this, there's a setting you can set that basically says whether the time how long it expires, if it ever expires. I'm pretty sure I set that setting.
To infinite.
Yeah, all right, on camera. Yes, there's definitely exists, and I definitely set that setting. Yes, absolutely. You know exactly what I'm doing here. Yeah, so if there aren't any other questions, well, one more shout out. Love Factory Boy for testing. Use this. I don't have no idea why I want to throw that out there, but anyway, I thought it was neat. Okay, that's my talk. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, a couple of thank yous. Thank you, Eric. And also thank you to Sunlight Foundation for hosting, despite once upon a time destroying one of their tables. So. And also videoing.
Yes.
So this will be, we have a Django District YouTube channel, surprise. Every now and then we tape some talks, so this will go up there, and that's awesome. Thank you. And lastly, next month's talk is up. It's another front-end talk. We're kind of doing a theme of front-end talks. I think it's August 27th. So come back, please. Oh, and we need to move the room back to its normal setting. So if we could have a couple of people help, and the rest of the people exit safely, that would be good.
I got one thing.
Yes.
So there's the Montgomery County Civic something association something. Basically, it's your concerned citizens that interact with the county council a lot. They're starting to plan a hackathon that's going to happen later this fall. It'll probably be either held in Rockville or Silver Spring. So I'll probably have more details about it in the next meeting. But they have a small list of project ideas and some data that they have that they would like to work on.
Yeah, sounds great.
You should also post it, besides announcing it at the meeting, post it like I think we have a board or something.
Okay, yeah.
Because you're in Gaithersburg, right?
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
I think it's there.
I think Meetup lets you promote, like if they put something on Meetup, I think Meetup lets you promote other groups' events.
I will make sure everyone here knows about it.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thanks. So the last thing, when I saw that...
Did your wedding happen yet?
Yeah.